Good evening. You're watching the evening news from television station Ostankiно. Today, the deputies of the State Duma of the Russian Federation were issued temporary deputy passes. The defense minister of Russia, Pavel Grachev, said that the optimum number of soldiers in the Russian army should be 2,100,000 people. In Moscow, special prizes have been awarded to members of the literary and arts community. In St. Petersburg, a nuclear-powered icebreaker was sent out to sea. It's called the Ural. In Hong Kong, there was a festive ceremony to open the largest statue of Buddha in the world. The government of Germany has refused an entrance visa to Zhirinovsky, to Germany. And the Moscow Academic Choreographical Technical College is celebrating its 220th anniversary. Since this morning, we've received constant information from Itar-Tas in reference to the list of names of deputies that have been elected to the State Duma of the Russian Federation. According to a decree by the Central Electoral Committee, this list of deputies will be published in the press. Russian voters will soon have the opportunity to find out the names of the deputies that have been elected to the Duma. For the time being, these deputies have been issued special temporary passes. According to reports by Interfax on Wednesday, the leaders of the four largest parliamentary factions, Russia's Choice, the Liberal Democratic Party, the Communist Party, and the Agrarian Party, have not reached any unanimous agreement on the candidate for the chairman of the State Duma. It appears that after their consultations, not a single candidate received full support. Therefore, they are considering the idea of appointing a speaker who represents a small faction in the Duma. It appears that many issues that will face the new Duma will pertain to the ever-worsening economic conditions. 15 newly elected deputies, as well as members of the organizational committee, met today in the Kremlin to discuss the building which will house the new Duma and the various conditions that will be offered to the deputies. According to Sergei Filatov, the first meeting made it impossible for these members to reach a consent upon who will be the chairman of the Duma. Consultations on the new structure of the government have essentially come to a close. By the 6th of January, all proposals on this score should be presented to the President. According to the first Vice Premier of the government, Vladimir Shumenko, this is the case. Shumenko said that all of the structures, any changes in the structure of government, have to be approved by the President and the Prime Minister. He also said that there won't be more than 30 ministries in the new government, and there are not to be any government agency committees. He also said that in discussing the new structure of the government, there was very little attention paid to the reaction by the State Duma. Vladimir Shumenko said that there isn't a single party or bloc that can provide the foundation for the so-called presidential party. He said that the elections have demonstrated that there is a foundation for creating a president's party. However, it would require tremendous preparatory work. Members of the Central Electorate Committee issued special diplomatic passes today for those new deputies that have been elected. The campaign prior to the elections showed that we are now facing new representation in our government in order to deal with many of the political and technical problems that face our country today. Not all the deputies were present here today. Some of them simply weren't able to make it to the capital on time. And others just simply haven't decided whether they will actually resume their posts or take over on their posts in the Duma. Some of the deputies, such as those from the Liberal Democratic Party, felt that some of the immediate issues at hand would be dealing with the rising crime in the country. We've introduced some draft legislation, and I think that we'll have to use some repressive measures in order to achieve our goals. I think we'll take some time to determine who the speaker is and what types of committees will be formed, but these issues are not the most important issues. As for the candidacy of the Speaker, it is likely that we'll have to take into consideration all interests of all the different factions in the Duma before an agreement can be reached. Nikolai Ryabov, in any case, expressed hope that finally law and order would be introduced into the Russian parliament. These are the hopes in any case, and we hope that we can avoid the former contradictions and constant battles that existed among parliamentary members in the past. Well, we don't have much longer to wait to see whether our hopes and dreams will come true. According to Interfax, there are 8 different factions in the State Duma that were hoping to receive the former building of the Supreme Soviet of the former Soviet Union, but they're not sure whether they will be awarded this building. The president, however, said that by the 5th of January, the restored parts of the building should be occupied. The case for the coup leaders from 1991 continues to go on in fits and starts. A hiatus will be taken until the 5th of January due to the illness of Pavlov, Lukyanov, and Plekhanov. According to Vasily Starodubtsev, the case should be brought to an end against Lukyanov and Starodubtsev because of the fact that they have been elected to the State Duma and their lawyers feel that they now have the immunity of deputies. The court said that they will return to this issue after the hiatus until the 5th of January. In the capital of Turkmenistan today, the Minjalis continued their meetings. The deputies discussed proposals regarding the extension of the authorities of the president for the next 10 years. However, this proposal was not passed because Niyazov himself, the president, rejected it. However, this issue will be raised again in a referendum on the 15th of January of 1994. The 18th session of the Supreme Soviet of Tajikistan finished early. They addressed 40 different issues pertaining to the public, political, social, and economic woes of the country. For this first year, the budget deficit is 95 billion rubles, and the government has promised to do all that it can in order to prevent further decline in manufacturing in the country. This is stated by the chairman of the Council of Ministers, Abdulaziz Samudalov. Most of the attention of Tajikistan will be focused on economic situations, and it has been stated that the Russian ruble will likely become the official currency of the country. The head of state has stated that he is in favor of passing a basic law, in other words, the Constitution, by June of 1994. Imam Amil Rahmanov, the chairman of the Supreme Soviet, said that it is important to hold new elections for the parliament so that the government will be led by more qualified professional individuals. Russia and Kazakhstan have achieved a agreement in principle on the status of various military sites that are being used by the military forces of Russia, as well as the Russian Space Agency. According to the General Director of the Russian Space Agency, Yuri Koptev, both sides have come to an understanding that it is necessary to sign a package of documents within the next 3 months so that Russia can lease these military sites. These include Baikonur and the city located nearby called Leninsk, as well as the nuclear test site Semipalatinsk and the test sites Saryshagra and Enga. The documents will be signed by Presidents Boris Yeltsin and Nursultan Nazarbayev. The summit meeting has come to a closure in Ashgabat. This meeting took place in the capital of Turkmenistan and was marked by the level-headedness of the people present here. This is the first time that all of the defense ministries of the various countries of the SNG, 11 countries, with the exception of Moldova, were present here together. They feel that it is very important to work together in cooperation because, says Colonel General Viktor Samansonov, not a single one of the states of the CIS can defend themselves independently of the others. They must work together. Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Belarus have become signees to the collective security agreement. This increases forces by 1.5-fold. Pavel Grachev said that there have been changes in the Ukraine leadership. We feel that this is leading to a greater situation of reliability and stability and security throughout the country. Today in Moscow, the Defense Minister Pavel Grachev stated at a press conference that the year 1993 was an extremely difficult year for the Russian army. During this year, the army played a very important role in preserving the integrity and ensuring the security of Russia. The army wishes stability, stability, and yet again, stability. Pavel Grachev noted that the creation of a new Russian army on the basis of the recently adopted military doctrine continues, and he also stated that the optimal number of people to serve in the Russian army is 2,100,000 people, and he stated that the decision by the Supreme Soviet of the former Supreme Soviet that the army should be 1% of the population was erroneous. He also denied any knowledge of any secret super weapons that Zhirinovsky has laid claims to. In Cheboksary today, there was an official recognition of the first president of Chuvash, the 35-year-old Nikolai Fyodorov, who is the Justice Minister of Russia. This is the victory that he's achieved after a two-year so-called two-year presidential marathon in his efforts to become president of Chuvash. Today, at a press conference, Vice Premier Yuri Yarov, as well as representatives of the so-called Ministry of Social Orientation, have stated that crisis situations in society are beginning to wane. This is because of recent policies undertaken by the government of the Russian Federation. Yuri Yarov feels that despite the fact that there will be continued problems in society for 1994, he feels that increased allocations from the government budget, as well as increases in pension funds, will likely ameliorate the situation to some extent. Nonetheless, the wages needed in order for people to basically exist should amount to 40,000 rubles. However, the minimum wage remains at 15,000 rubles. As a result, 49 million people are still living beyond the poverty line. Prices increased over the past year by 8.7-fold. And the minimum pension, despite all various advantages, is 26.3 thousand rubles, and with an average of 40,000 rubles. Many are very concerned about raising unemployment rates. According to experts, the hidden unemployment that is not recorded is somewhere around 7 to 9 million people. As you can see, the future will heavily depend on the budget policies that will be passed by the government. Most important is the fact that the social welfare system has been revamped, and the government has made decisions to provide greater statistics on the living standards for children in our country. Despite the fact that these important changes have been introduced, it is quite likely that social tensions will continue to be present in our country in this next year. Over the course of 1992 to 1993, the value of the dollar against the ruble has risen from 414.5 rubles to the dollar to 1,247. Inflation in Russia, as of the 14th of December, amounted to 750%. That is, prices for 1993 increased 3.75 times faster than the ruble dropped in value. A new ship was launched today at sea. It is, in fact, an icebreaker, a nuclear-powered icebreaker, and many people from St. Petersburg came to the docks today to see it off. Many people are concerned about its fate. The vessel was built with great difficulty and in fits and starts because there simply wasn't enough money available to provide for the construction. In fact, it isn't entirely completed, and its completion would require an additional 100 billion rubles. Unfortunately, this boat, the Ural, is not alone in this in difficult financial situations. The St. Petersburg docks would like to build more ships, but they're not always in a financial capability of doing so. This is the Arctic, and many of the icebreakers are brought here in order to open transportation lines. And it is only now that by New Year, one of these vessels has returned to its home port of Vladivostok. Many of the financing for such projects for breaking through the icy waters of the Arctic are compensated by the government. However, we receive our funds usually only 3 months after we've completed work. What type of system is this anyway? How can we possibly work effectively? The other problems that we face are the people that are living in the northern territories to whom we bring goods and services are also late in paying for the goods that we've provided. As of the 1st of January, the cost of municipal transportation will increase to 40 rubles for the subway, and to 50 rubles for the subway and 40 rubles for buses and all other forms of municipal transportation. Monthly passes will cost 5,400 rubles, and for students, 1,620 rubles. In Belgium and Holland, various automobile plants that are selling the Lada and Zhigalu are shrouded in secrecy and even mysticism, because it seems that these automobiles have a unique capability of disappearing without a trace. Many insurance agencies refuse to cover these automobiles because there's tremendous theft among these vehicles in Belgium and in Holland. Apparently, the number of auto thefts for 1993 increased fourfold as compared to 1992, and the percentage of the automobiles that are found after they've been stolen is growing ever smaller. On average, 60% of the automobiles stolen, of the 60% stolen, only 20 to 25% are found later. It appears that some of these automobiles that are stolen in Belgium and Holland are returned to Russia and resold there. According to a representative of Interpol, Marcel Dumas, this is becoming a tremendous problem, and it seems that Russia is in a sense a black hole for these Ladas and Zhiguli. Some vehicles that have been stolen have been found outside of Potsdam. But we're very unlucky when it comes to finding the majority of the vehicles that have been stolen from our automobiles sales facilities. It seems that despite the fact that countries like Belgium have introduced new laws whereby automobile thieves can be sent to prison, even if they're foreigners, has not brought any type of reduction in the number of automobile thefts witnessed here. It's 100 years since the Starozhilovsky stables were opened. Pavel Fandiris continues to run this facility. Fyodor Schechter was the architect of this facility, and to this day it continues to operate and provide a home for these beautiful horses. The horses are purchased throughout Russia and as well as in other countries and are awarded with a number of international prizes. It was decided 15 years ago that they would reintroduce a special Russian breed that was very popular in the last century. It was painstaking and laborious work in order to bring this breed back. However, now the first group is prepared. They have a deep brown coat. They're very powerful and have envious speed. Today in the airport of Omsk, a Tu-154 aircraft crashed. It had been en route from Domodedovo. Luckily, there were no casualties. According to Itar-TASS, the crew, led by Vladimir Shimoshevsky, simply could not operate the right-sided landing gear. His efforts to correct the situation were in vain, and the aircraft ran out of fuel. As a result, the pilot decided to make an emergency landing. There were 159 people on board. Luckily, none of them were injured. There was also another airplane crash, and unfortunately was much more tragic. In Odessa today, the Ni-8 helicopter from the 5th Division of the Ukraine Air Force crashed at 1:15 p.m. today in Kiev. We hope that we'll have a special report on this that we can show following this news program. Today at the Institute of Sklitosovsky, there was a 70-year anniversary celebration. This is a special emergency care unit that was put into place in 1773 by Count Nikolai Sheremetyev when he fulfilled his promise to his wife to create a special institute to provide health care to the ill and the crippled. This Moscow Institute has been named after the famous surgeon Nikolai Pirogov. No one can imagine Moscow without this special institute to provide emergency care. This institute has provided assistance and rendered care for many tragic accidents that have taken place in our capital. Here we have very highly qualified doctors, and not just doctors, but also scientists, because we conduct scientific research here. We also conduct various conferences and scientific seminars here, at which various specialists from throughout Russia participate. This celebration is a very profound event and marks a very important recognition of famous surgeons in our country. Emergency care must always go on, even on a day of celebration. The 4 terrorists that were captured after taking several schoolchildren hostage in Rostov-on-the-Don are under an armed escort from Makhachkala back to Rostov-on-the-Don. Apparently $9,400,000 have been recuperated from the $10 million that were given as ransom to the terrorists during the operation. The dossiers on these men are still remain confidential and have not been open to the press. In Odessa today there was an aircraft crash. The NI-8 helicopter crashed and exploded upon impact. According to preliminary reports, 7 people were on board, and the helicopter belonged to the 5th Army of this Ukrainian division. Everyone on board died immediately. The pilot, luckily, at the last minute was able to avoid apartment buildings that were located very near to the landing strip. Today in the Vladimir Hall at the Kremlin, Boris Yeltsin presented awards to various specialists in the area of literature and arts. The award that they received today had the image of the 2-headed eagle on it. This is the first time that this coat of arms of Russia has been presented in this type of award. According to the President, this group of intellectuals have played a very important role in passing on Russian culture from generation to generation. Among those who received awards today were academician Ligachov, the writer Eskander, the poet Shukhonin, the musicians Bashmet and Pletnyov, as well as a couple of film directors, Kutsev and Melikov. Culture is an important part of our society. It is not enough for people to eat food. They must be able to consume culture, read books, attend performances and concerts. And it is in this that I see our great role. After all, our motherland and our culture are one and the same. And if we have the opportunity to share our culture and our literature with our people, then it's our responsibility to do so. Members of the Russian press addressed Viktor Chernomyrdin today. They said that the Union of Journalists of Moscow and of Russia say that the cost or the prices that are being demanded by various publishing facilities have increased 6-fold. As a result, it is very unlikely that even the best publications will be able to survive. In fact, the chief editor of one of the major publications in Moscow said that from the 10th to the 17th of January, he will halt all publishing activities. In Irkut, for 35 years ago, this television tower was erected in the frozen tundra of the north. This humble television station, however, has at various times been the home to various popular and well-known people. For example, the film director who produced the film Moscow Doesn't Believe in Tears, or even the so-called electronic Avengers. Also, Yuri Barsukov, who is now well known for the two television programs Viewpoint and Wheel of Fortune. He too was very important in the initial operations of this television station. Today, television producers here in Irkut continue to be very active and wish everyone throughout the country a happy holidays. Television continues to play more and more of an important role in our lives. It seems that those who are working in the sphere of television are hoping to try to study the psychological effects that television has upon viewers. Some hope that television will be able to avoid banal programs and find ways to stimulate society through their programming. There are also many new programs on television that clearly affect people. You can't have angels without Satans, after all. And we have to be able to address all the needs throughout society and represent various circles and interest groups. Television is often said to be both my love and my sadness. But in any case, we hope that the television stations working together will be able to provide educational programming as well as scientific programming and entertainment. We don't want to just provide programming that people either like or dislike, but programming that people will really be able to think about. Today, the Central Russian Bank said that the trust company JMM has been conducting operations without proper licensing from the central bank. The press service of the bank said that the absence of such licensing for JMM suggests that JMM is simply an illegal company operating here. The Federal Republic of Germany announced that it is rejecting visas to Zhirinovsky and his cohorts that had hoped to come to the Federal Republic of Germany. When Zhirinovsky was in Bulgaria, he attempted to lay a wreath at a special monument, and 500 demonstrators encircled him, whistled at him, and tried to prevent him from laying the wreath. After he walked away, they gathered the flowers and threw them at him. He had hoped to travel to Germany for 18 days. However, he will not be able to travel there, and in fact, the president of Bulgaria has given him 24 hours to get out of the country of Bulgaria. There's been great debate as to whether or not to allow Zhirinovsky into the country, but in the end, the government decided that it is not possible for him to come, because Fogel says that the government has the right to deny a visa to any foreigner if his presence threatens the interests of the country. U.S. President Clinton named his special ambassador, Strobe Talbot, a Russian specialist, to the post of Deputy Secretary of State of the United States. Strobe Talbot is a very close friend of the president, back from his Oxford days. But besides the fact that they are good friends, he's a very experienced individual and very knowledgeable in his field. He studied Russia, and in Yale, his master's work was done on Russian poetry of the 19th century. His specialty was Mayakovsky. Strobe Talbot also translated the memoirs of Khrushchev, and he's become a very active politician in the United States. He is very much in favor of increasing assistance to Russia, and he also said that it is important to continue to support Yeltsin after the elections. However, he also said that it's possible to hold reform, but they have to be focused on social needs. It is now very likely that we have a clearer picture of the U.S. position that will be represented at this upcoming summit meeting that will take place in 2 weeks. Israeli aviation conducted an air raid against the pro-Iranian organization Hezbollah. This was after the Libyan organization held an air raid in the security zone of Israel. The African National Congress and the government of South Africa continue to mistrust one another and cannot reach any agreement that would allow for true law and order to take hold in their country. In the Philippines, several provinces and cities have been declared disaster zones because of the heavy flooding there after Typhoon Nell. More than 100,000 people were affected by the floods. Flooding continues in France today, and many people who have suffered will be paid more than 300 billion French francs to compensate them for the losses. Many people gathered today to welcome the opening of the largest statue of Buddha in Hong Kong. It is made out of bronze and steel and is 34 meters in height, 227 tons in weight, and it took 10 years to build. Currently at the Bolshoi Theater, the Moscow Academic Choreographical Technical School is celebrating its 220-year anniversary. These anniversaries are new to Moscow. In 1773, this technical school was founded. For more than 100 years, it was undistinguished. It was put up with, but it didn't play the important role that we see it playing today. Thanks to assistance by the so-called Malay Theater, the children here were able to continue performing in their training ever since 1773. When it first opened, there were 28 small boys and 26 small girls who, for the first time, heard about the ballet theater. One of the first teachers was Madame Blushkov, who taught professional ballet as well as taught various human values. Alexandra Vorsky played a very important role in the development of this school, which gave Moscow Ballet its individuality. You can see how happy these children here are. This is such a wonderful day for them. They dreamed about it for so long, and it's so exciting for them to be able to dance on the stage of the Bolshoi Theater. Art exists today and it will always exist, and it provides hope for our future, and we believe that ballet will always flourish. Today, on the stage of the Bolshoi Theater, young and older students from the Moscow School of Dance will be performing to demonstrate what they have achieved in their years of training. These are the main news stories of the day. In just a few minutes, you'll hear sports news and weather. I'd like to say goodbye to you and wish you a happy new year. Minatep Bank combines intellectual and financial resources to invest in Russian industry. Minatep is the #1 investment bank. According to the Zaslavsky Research Institute, 41% of Muscovites have invested in the Moscow real estate. Well, I decided to invest my voucher into Moscow real estate because it seemed to be the most hopeful thing for me. I think it's very reliable and will likely bring the largest returns. The Muscovites have already made their choice. It's your turn now. Moscow real estate is always on hand. Attention to the shareholders of the public joint stock company MMM. The stockholders meeting has decided that dividends will be issued for the fourth quarter of this past year with 1,000% annual. The dividends will be issued as of the 1st of February 1994 at the address Moscow, City of Moscow, Varshavskaya Chaussee, number 26, MMM Trade Hall. We work daily with the exception of Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Smile more often this new year. Most Bank. Good evening. There are several different hockey matches and tournaments going on around the world. The most interesting is in Germany, where the group competitions for the playoffs of the European Cup continued. Tomorrow, the Dynamo team from Moscow will play against the Finland team TPS. Moscow today lost against Sweden 2-1. In third place was the Italian team. The Italian team played against Minsk with a draw of 5-5, but nonetheless the Italian team finished in third. In the NHL today, there were 7 matches being played. The New York Islanders won 3-0. And of course, some of our players were also very actively involved. 2 goals were scored by Dmitry Hrishkich, 1 from Valery Kamensky and 1 from Valery Zalipukhin from New Jersey. In the NBA today, the leaders of the Atlantic teams played and New York lost to New Jersey. The Rockets lost to Seattle 97-112. The 1987 Wimbledon champ decided that he would return to the tennis court. Of course, he's had very great difficulties. However, he hopes that he will be able to participate in the championship in Australia. The race continues, the Paris-Dakar Paris. The second stage brought all kinds of unexpected events, however, and this race will be shown on Channel 1 of Ostankiно at midnight. 50,000 spectators were present today at the camel races that took place in Luzhevsky, at the Luzhevsky racetrack. The competition was tense today, however the victor was a Mr. Speckle. I was born here, and I've spent my entire athletic career in this area, and it's very exciting for me to win the first prize again, just like I did in 1980. Minotep Bank combines intellectual and financial resources to invest in Russian industry. Minotep is the #1 investment bank. Russia in Moscow on the 3rd of December 1992 registered the MMM Investment Corporation, and in Belgium on the 3rd of December 1993 it registered its investment corporation in Belgium. MMM Invest will turn your vouchers into gold. Trust that's passed on from generation to generation. The Russian Credit Bank. Look at that fantastic dribbling. Every game takes a lot of energy and strength, and after every game I always feel like eating. So what I've decided to do is reach for a Snickers bar. Candy bars made from roasted peanuts, soft caramel, and covered with chocolate. Snickers. It's the best way to kill your hunger. The weather forecast for the 30th of December. In Celsius, the Povolzha region, the Central Black Earth region, the Central region, Belarus, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, St. Petersburg, and Moscow.